Hey, this is Dale, your librarian, and I am here to show you the difference between scholarship and open web and how to game the system to your advantage so you get a complete picture before you start doing the scholarly research, or you can at least validate knowing that you've got a good idea of like what's going on. Okay, so in scholarship, we're going to talk about this in other videos, I'm assuming, but we have like a scholarly article on one side, and we've got something from the open web. Both are talking about talking to your cat, believe it or not. And there's a cat-themed video for those of you who are into that. Catster is kind of like simplified. There's little decorations, whereas this one over on the left looks really hard to get into. What's going on with like open web stuff that's really easy to consume? It's almost like fast food, isn't it? And then the scholarly one on the left is kind of like a recipe where I have to like bake my own. Let me show you what is going on with that. So the Catster one is audience-based. A lot of the stuff on the open web is catered specifically towards the language you speak or where you come from or the values that you have. Might be political, might be that you're a fan of a certain band, or any number of different things like that. Typically those topics are interpreted for the intended audience. So in another video you'll see the media bias chart. But if I really vote like one way, I can find a bunch of news that kind of like agrees with what I have to say, and it'll bring up important things. So it's kind of interpreted for me. Whereas on the scholarship side of things, they tend to look as objectively as possible at an issue or a problem or a concept or a question, and they'll look at the history, research methods, populations, repeatable experiments, and all that other stuff. Just so you know, when you are out on the open web, typically it's audience-based. So the strategy would be to look at, that's why they say look at multiple sources, but you can strategize and you can intentionally say, okay, I want people who are in favor of this and I want people who are against this, and that's how I can get a more complete picture. You get to see the cute cat of comprehension. So the scholarship, the reader understands and interprets meaning for themselves. It's kind of like a doctor coming in and saying, I couldn't help but notice that you have a broken leg. Whereas over this one, in the open internet, it's like the reader consumes information. It's already been kind of like processed for your demographic, for your language, and things like that. How does that work? If you go out to the open web, you may have heard of this before, but you've got like an IP address. So if you check your IP address, everyone's got one. And if you have a VPN or something like that, it's like de-identified or something. I don't know how those VPNs work. But it tells people where I'm at regionally. So if I do a search for Mexican food, it's not going to send me to where the best Mexican food is in Mexico City. It's going to look at Salt Lake City. That's how it does it. It looks at my IP address. Sometimes these get messed up, though. If anyone's looking at this and you've taken a trip overseas, every now and then the cookies from overseas will still linger and it'll say, oh yeah, come to Reykjavik. We've got the best tacos in town. And you'd be like, what? Another one's browser history. Every time you look for something, your history is something that is kept. And also cookies are these little small text files that will record just little teeny bits of information. And then sometimes it will share it with the website. So things like passwords or like what you've looked at before, so it can cater things to what you're interested in. And sometimes there'll be third-party cookies that'll say, hey, when he was on Amazon, he was looking at sunglasses. And so all of a sudden you get a bunch of ads for sunglasses on other websites. When you go to an academic library, we don't use any of those. We use keywords. But when you're out on the open web, you have to be careful. So here's your strategy to consider when you're going and looking for background information or keywords or context, just building up an idea of what's going on. So I do a search for education policy. Out on the open web, it's looking at my IP address and the language that I type it in, but it kind of trends towards the national. So I've got like these USA Today and The Hill and even like the BBC. And there's a little bit of Utah in there, but sometimes you have to add something like Utah. And then all of a sudden maybe an AI pops up, maybe an Utah Education Policy think tank, the Board of Education. So what I would recommend for you is be aware that if you're doing a search for on the open web, you're wondering what the education policy in Thailand is, beware that it's going to push you to stuff that is not from Thailand. These are things that are a bit like translated into whatever language that you're searching in or the region that you're at. So we get like NIH stuff, we get the OECD, PBS. What's going on? I want like the Thai stuff. So that regional and things, when you're doing a normal search, you don't think about those things going on, but that can be problematic. Here's how to get around that. You can look at social media Thailand, education policy. You can throw in a whole mess of keywords like that. And you can see we're getting a little closer, but we're still like things that aren't quite local. So you might go onto TikTok or Instagram search engine just by themselves. In Scholarship, this is a lot easier because it doesn't like want to pull you back to Salt Lake City. Another one that you can do though is I would say do newspaper Thailand, and then you can find papers. Typically they're going to be translated, but this one looks cool because it actually has the Thai characters. One of the most widely circulated newspapers in Thailand. So if you want to know what's going on, get Google Translate to work. Come on, Google Translate. Yes, this is where you would look. You have to go. It's almost like going to a store if you need the points of view of a particular group of people. Oh no, I think I got blocked. Yeah, cool. So what you could do, so I'm going to close that and I'm going to type in education. I don't know if this is going to translate for me. I might have to go to Google Translate and get the characters. Because these are like, some of these are like ads and bot generated things. So you might have to do a little bit of digging and going back and forth. But know that those regional things can get in the way. But newspapers, social media, anything that's tied to like a regional local government, you can do all of these. Where is it? I want the government. There we go, the Royal Thai Government. Why is it like 4th on my search link? You can search all of these websites that are locally sponsored, locally authored, but you do have to do a bit of digging. And this is how I would approach it. This has been Dale. See you in the next video.